Good morning. Hi, this is Sonia Holt, your CFWC Communications Chairman, and I'd like to welcome you to our August Back to Basics workshop, all about speaking and listening. Welcome, everyone.
Things that I've noticed as your president. So first thing you see is that we are recording.
Got it.
And I've said that I will accept that, and hopefully you'll see it on YouTube. I see that we're putting up a lot on YouTube these days. It's going very quick, those workshops. And I'm going to hand it over to Barbara to say a few words. Barbara.
Just want to say welcome, everybody. It's nice to see your smiling faces. Beautiful day. So not quite so hot in California today, but this is a very interesting workshop, and I'm sure that you will learn a lot. And thank you very much, Madam President Pam, and also to Sonia and Debbie for all the work that they do getting us here. And of course, Valerie's always there to guide us. So welcome, everyone. Enjoy the next couple hours.
Nice. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to mute everyone, and then we will let Pam unmute. Thank you. Let's mute them all so that no speakers play on each other. Okay, fantastic. Okay, Pam.
Okay, has everyone been on Zoom before? Do we need to go over how to get up and walk away and bring up your picture? If so, raise your hand physically for us so that we know we need to go over that. I don't see any hands raised. How about unmuting yourself? If we give you permission to unmute yourself, do you all know how to do that? Does anybody not know how to do that? We'll take our time. I'm enjoying these workshops this summer that we've been offering. Of course, Barbara is in charge of the next two, for the deans and the chairs. I think she's going to have a lot of fun with you, and that's later this week. And we have a boot camp coming up on Saturday. Sonia, correct? A communications boot camp, and she can tell you a little more about that at the end. But welcome, everyone. We're going to be working a little on speaking and listening, which of course has changed immensely during the time of a pandemic. So I'm going to start with the pandemic speaking and listening. You notice that my camera is here. I'm pointing to it right now. I've raised my chair. I've put in a chair insert so that when I am speaking to you, I am within the confines of the screen parameters. It's a little like acting for film and television. Most of you are. I don't see anybody that's really on a tilt, kind of like this, okay, which is a little uncomfortable at times with the phone. It's a little harder because sometimes we see body parts that we're not very comfortable about. And that speaks to your speaking, right? I mean, to be very honest about it. And it's hard to hold something still. It's one thing to be in person and sit in an audience and move around and write and look up, but it's another thing to stay still on screen. And that's something that we need to think about on Zoom as we speak. A lot of you know that I have been outlining my speeches for the last year and a couple of months. It's because I don't want to do this. Although I do sometimes. It's very difficult. And you wouldn't do that on a podium or a dais either. So you really need to think about how to do that. The unfortunate thing about Zoom is you see yourself. To me, it's unfortunate. I don't like looking at myself. Right now, I see Sonia on the top, Sonia Holtz, Tony Lima, Yvonne Cahill, Ellen Ansock, Valerie Barnes, and Debbie Pietrosco. They're in a little film strip across the top, and that's who I am focusing on. I am not looking below that line. I don't need to see that I'm wearing blue and purple and a lot of jewelry. It's very distracting as a speaker to look at yourself. And that's something you need to think about too, if you have jumbo screens behind you or if you have a monitor in front of you, and see that. because that's a big distraction. And when you are a speaker, you are speaking for the assembly, the audience, the ticket payers, whatever kind of venue it is, and you need to do the best you can with them. So Zoom has really upped our speaking talents in this way. The other thing that it's done is we are not used to working with microphones any longer. I don't have a boom mic, although I thought about it for a long time. You see that Debbie Petrosco usually has an earphone set with a microphone, and that's called a boom too, a little boom around the top, a boom mic attached to it. And we are used to the microphones we see at the podium. Our computers have different types of microphones. Mine is right on either side of the camera. So if I move my head, I'm going to go in and out of the ability to be heard by all of you. So that's another thing we've had to learn to adjust, is exactly where are our microphones on our desktops or our phones. They're a little easier to tell because you can actually feel it. The iPad, same thing, you can feel the vibration, because that's what sound is it's actually vibration. And when we get into talking about microphones in general, we're going to talk about the diaphragm of a microphone and how it vibrates and creates the sound reinforcement. The other thing that the pandemic has really brought forth is that there is a lot of questioning. And questions are very healthy. They're very good. But when we say something and it's not necessarily in writing, or you're there in person to speak privately to the person afterwards, there's a lot of misinformation that is coming from that. So for instance, we talked about report writing with the deans and the district presidents about 6 weeks ago. I think it was about 6 weeks ago. And we gave them the scenario of what was going to happen. Well, now we're getting emails from people telling us what we didn't say. And they're taking it upon themselves to misinterpret the rules that we set down. Don't be fooled by Zoom. It's very easy to just listen and not take notes. If you have to, take notes or ask a decent question, because when we say that everything's going to be available and you send out an email saying only this is going to be available, we know you're not listening and we're not getting through to you via Zoom. So it's a little difficult for us. So that's another speaking and listening technique that we really have to work on with Zoom. Zoom has forced us to pay more attention to email, to our yearbooks, which are very important, to our bylaws, extremely important. These are the things that I call the written word. You can go back and look at it. It's okay to say, I sent you the answer to that on this date. Please look at your email from that date from me. We need to really just keep enforcing all of the language that we're using. Language is one of our best tools that we have for us. I really believe you can say just about anything to anyone as long as you do it in a loving manner and in a polite manner. We can never be mean. We can never be judgmental. And we're volunteers. Nothing should ever be capitalized in email. Everything should be very calm and very nice. And I think that that kind of covers what we've really had come to the forefront in Zoom. We need to listen to the questions being asked, of course. It's really hard when we hear somebody ask one question, then somebody ask another, or we say, this is for sharing, these are for questions, and then we get the opposite happening. at the end of a call, we're trying to get around to everybody. Or if somebody, I know there was one of the calls that we had where somebody just kept changing their position in the room and showing us everything that they were doing. And it wasn't questions, it was more like bragging. That's okay if we've asked for the brag, but that's a listening skill. What have we asked for? What have you asked for? Because you're going to find that as we start meeting in person again, you're going to have to be extremely specific with your memberships and very honest and very straightforward. Because a lot of us, you know what I did for a living. I taught acting for a living. I know when someone's lying to me, even on Zoom. I know a snow job from a mile away. I think that we have all gotten better with that talent during Zoom. So if you feel that you're not being asked the correct question because there might be a hidden something underneath it, ask that person, what is it you really want from this? What is your end game? What are you trying to accomplish? Because it may take you from 10 questions where they're trying to get the right answer that they want to one answer where they finally say, well, this is what I want to do. And so you just have to really look for that and be honest with your membership, no matter what job you're going to have. As we open up and start moving with one another into the in-person meetings again, we have a lot to get through. Some of it's going to be very easy. Some of it's going to be very difficult. We just have to take it and move with it as best we can and as comfortable as we are with the process. So are there any questions on that little bit that I've said so far?
There are no questions on the floor.
Okay, so we're going to go to page 1, 2, and 3. And I talk about public speaking. This is something my husband and I wrote probably in 2005, but it hasn't changed. And it's about the 6 E's of public speaking. And E's is really a fun little word to do because yes, the vowel is E, but they are easily done, these things. And so if you've been asked to speak at a function, I think you need to remember this goes for both Zoom and for public speaking, that it's really important that you remember that a speech is not the same as a speech class. How many of you, by a show of physical hands, have taken a speech class? They used to require it in college in the 70s and 80s when I was in college. Excellent. So some of you know that the speech classes, that there's different categories of speech, that there's different types of speech techniques and oral interpretation. I was on the college speech team for a number of years, 2 years. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I wanted to be on the debate team. They would not let me be on the debate team. I was not trained for debate. I was trained for oral interp. And my biggest talent was split readers theater, where they would put your names in a hat. You would be put with 5 other people from other universities and colleges in the competition. And the 6 of you would be thrown together with about 100 pieces of paper, and you had to come up with a 45-minute performance. And I love that. It was just up my alley. I like improvisation, and that's kind of what it was. So if you are interested in learning about diction, vocal and timing, inflection, volume, subject, diphthongs, vowel sounds, transitions, tongue twisters, breathing, and how to breathe with your diaphragm, this is not the speech for you today. Those are things that you can learn in class. You can probably learn them if you are in a choir. Your choir director is going to go after, they're going to add consonant sounds to that, because when you've got these consonant sounds like S, you got to get off of them right away if you're singing, because you don't want the song just to be a bunch of S's and S sounds. You want to hear them sharper than that, the k, 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 you know, those kinds of sounds. So that's a different kind of public speaking. That's technical. But when you think about public speaking, you have to think about 3 things. And if you get those 3 things right, you're home free. And they are a beginning, a middle, and an end. 3. If you have your beginning, middle, and end, you're home free. They're probably going to give you a subject if you've been asked to speak, which is great. Congratulations, they want you to speak. You have a subject. Many of you have asked me to come and visit at your clubs and your districts. And I've asked you, is there something specific you would like to hear? Because that helps me narrow down what I'm going to do for you. And that's going to help any speaker. I think that, you know, if you were to ask Valerie Barnes to come and speak, you would want to have her in this particular case as a parliamentarian, but for all we know, you can ask her to speak on her travels in the Caribbean. We don't know, but she needs to know that. She needs to know if she's expected to talk about her travel to the Caribbean. And I don't even know if she's ever been there, but it seems like she's been a lot of places. But if you want her to talk about that, you need to tell her. Otherwise, she, as a parliamentarian of state, she's going to come in and talk to you about parliamentarian duties, procedures, our bylaws, and other things. So it really helps the speaker to tell them what you want them to talk about and how long you want them to talk. Now, for itinerary in GFWC, CFWC, GFWC half hour, if you have a GFWC officer. CFWC, we ask for 20 minutes. At least give them the 20 minutes. Okay, because anybody can say, oh, I'll speak for 15 and then we'll do Q&A. And that's important. We want people to pepper the speakers with questions. So if you're planning a meeting and you're going to have a public speaker, know too that people may want to ask questions. Case in point, the captain of the firemen that came to the Mardi Gras convention, he spoke for probably 20 minutes. Everyone was throwing beads at him. He talked about, I never knew what a red flag warning was. It means get out. He was very, very personable and spoke. But then when we opened it to the floor for questions, he was there for just as long answering questions. So you need to plan that as well when you are speaking publicly or planning to have a public speaker. There will be Q&A. Not every speaker is going to stick around to be peppered with questions at a table during lunch or something else. So be ready for that. Once you've outlined your 3 things, the beginning, the middle, the end, you need to start thinking about your 6 E's. So your first E, excite. You have to be exciting. I'm going to go back to the Charlie Brown adults. If you stand up at the podium and all the audience is hearing is wah, 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 there is absolutely no excitement. None. Make sure you are excited about your subject. And when you ask somebody to speak about it, you know, it's like, we'd like you to do this. And if they tell you that they're not very good at it, but they'll do their best job, accept that. It's like, none of you are going to ask me to come in and speak about algebra or calculus, because all you're going to hear is, wow, 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 wow. I know nothing. I know how I passed it in college. He graded on presentation orally, and I came dressed in costume. So that much I could share. So you have to make sure you excite your people. Enthuse. In order for people to be enthused in the assembly or audience, you need to be enthusiastic at the podium. The podium is a big problem. It is called upstaging. It cuts you off right here, depending if you're like short like me. It's a little worse if you're wearing heels and it cuts you off right under the breast area, because that's what people see resting on the podium. And people notice these things. And so if you're tall like Sonia Holtz, which is great, you can be above that podium and we just have to move the microphone. And that's fabulous because you see her from the waist up, which is a normal view for a speaker. But if you notice that if I can, I will take the handheld microphone and go onto the floor and get in front of the podium. It is important for me to get away from an inanimate object because everyone is looking at the inanimate object and not at the speaker. So think about being enthusiastic in different ways, getting away from things that are going to upstage you. Educate. You need to be knowledgeable of your subject. You can't get up and BS through it. Someone will call you on it. We've all seen it happen. So know what you're talking about. Entertain. You need to be entertaining. And the best way to do that is to be authentic. We are all authentic, but your family is not the only people that need to see that. We need to see it at club. We need to see it at district. We need to see it in front of or behind a podium. We need to see it in your speech. Be who you are. Be proud of that. There's only one you. So really, really entertain and be authentic. Keeps people listening. And we're talking about listening today too. Eye contact. We're taught in acting that you have three focuses. You have something to the right, which is audience right, which is really stage left. You have something center, and you have something to the audience left, which is your stage right, because stage right and all that stuff is from the actor's point of view or the speaker's point of view. So you've got these three things, not three people. It's very hard to look at somebody and say something to them without them feeling uncomfortable. But you can go above your assembly and audience and make eye contact with the corner of the room, the back of the room where there might be the sign-in tables, and then the other corner of the room. People don't know that that's what you're really focusing on. If you are looking at somebody in particular, make sure that they are not uncomfortable. And you'll know. They start to squirm. They look down at the floor. They play with their hands. And you don't ever want to intimidate anybody with eye contact from the podium in your speech. I think it's different when you say something like I did about Valerie. If Valerie's going to come and speak at your district and you want her to speak on the Caribbean, you need to tell her that. And if I were to say that in an audience, I think that people would actually be laughing out loud, including Valerie. It's not putting her on the spot, but it is bringing focus to the situation that we're talking about, the subject, and educating people about that. But I'm not looking at her saying, yeah, she's done this. She can tell you about this and this and this and this, which really puts them on the spot. So we need to be careful about our eye contact, but you have to have eye contact. You have all seen speakers where they look at the floor, they look at the ceiling, they look at their papers, they put their papers between you and themselves, and it's hiding. You can't hide. You have to be open as a speaker. The last E is exit. Know when to leave. Have you all seen Private Benjamin, the movie Private Benjamin, where it ends and they have a little fade to black and then it comes back for 20 more minutes? When you end it, end it. If you don't know what to do to end it, just say, I think I'm going to stop there. Are there any questions? It's okay to do that. People want an exit, and you have to give an ending. Otherwise, they don't know your ending. Hence, that concludes my report, Madam President. Now we know you're done. So exit. Exit gracefully if you can. You don't want to do the Chevy Chase thing. If you're walking up and down stairs, use the handrails. Okay. If you're going to sit in your chair, make sure you don't scrape it on the floor as part of your exit, because everyone's going to say, oh, she flapped down in her chair and then she scraped it moving back up to the table. Your exit is a complete part of the speech that you've given. And you need to make sure that you do that. Now, I talk a lot about those 6 E's in different ways in your paperwork, so you can go back and read them. I'm not going to read it word for word. That's for you. I've been doing this since well, I think since I was not Leeds. Yes, I was Leeds. This was the very first speech I gave after I was Leeds in 2004. And so it's not changed. It's been something that we've been doing in California for a long time. We just haven't done it for a very long time. Microphones. Show of hands. How many of you are comfortable with a microphone? Not many. Okay. Microphones are not your enemy. They are there to enhance the work that you do. They can be a problem. So there's some things that you can do to make sure that you recognize how to make the microphone work for you better. We have all been to meetings where the microphones stop working. Just go out in the middle of somebody's talk. We're going to talk about, that's one of 2 things that have happened. But there are some other things that you can do to make yourself easier with a microphone. I am on page 3. So the 5 tips I can give you about microphones. Microphones are not magic wands. We don't wave them around like Harry Potter and Hermione Granger. They need to be here in order to work. So you can't do this. You can't turn over here when the microphone's over here. If you're going to hold it, it's here. That's why what Debbie's wearing. And if you have a chance, Debbie, is it okay if I ask them to take a look at you today? Can we bring her up on screen? Debbie,
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
So there she is. She's got a headset on. You can see them covering her ears. She's got a microphone that's on what we call a boom. It's attached to the headset itself, and it comes in front and stays there. So Debbie, look right. The microphone moves with her.
Moves with me.
Look left, the microphone moves with her. She can look down, she can look up, the microphone works with her. Thank you so much for letting me put you on the spot like that.
You're welcome.
And you see, that's how you do it as a speaker. May we do this? May we share? If you are holding a microphone here, and I'm going to use scissors. So if you're holding a microphone here and you start talking over here, the microphone did not move with you. You need to move physically with the microphone. That's not the easiest thing to do. And if the microphone is on a holder, it's definitely not going to move with you. So you need to think about those things when you're using a microphone. It's not a magic wand. You have to hold it. I used to tell the actors all the time, it is an extension of your arm, and you focus it on the tip of your nose, not on your mouth, on your nose, straight down from your nose. That makes it work so much better, because we're going to get into what happens when you do it here. It doesn't look good, for one thing, but it also does things to the diaphragm inside the microphone. So extension of your arm, and it's not a magic wand, down from your nose. And you have to speak loudly enough in the microphone for it to reinforce your sound. If I talk this loud, nobody hears anything. They just see your mouth moving. They might hear a few hard consonant sounds, but you need to speak loud enough for a microphone to pick you up and give sound reinforcement. That was number 2, adequate sound. Okay, number 3, microphones are as different as we are. We just showed you one with Debbie. I showed you one with the scissors, which would be a handheld. Or you've seen the kind that are on the wire that are actually built to the on top of the podium, and they come up and they stand there, and you can lift them, you can close, you can do whatever you want with them. They're usually long and cylindrical and covered with a mouse, which we'll get into the parts of a microphone very shortly, but styrofoam. So they are very, very different. They're also the kinds that you see like rock stars wear, or speakers. The rock stars usually wear one on their ear, and you see it come right around the front, kind of like Debbie's. It's very small, or they'll wear tape, wig tape. They'll put it right here on their face, tape it on so that we know that they've got the sound here. Or you can wear a clip-on your clothes, a lavalier. So they're all different types of microphones. We talked about number 4, it's an extension of your nose, not your mouth. And number 5, assume that there are frequency problems from the get-go. If you get frequency while you're speaking on a microphone, don't fight it, don't get louder, just stop. It's usually the band of the emergency people in your neighborhood, because the cheaper the microphone, which I found is what the clubs and the districts are buying, the more bandwidth you're going to get into your microphone usage. You need to buy a good microphone, an expensive microphone, in order not to get that. That's why you'll see a lot of hotels and things saying that they hire out to a company to come in that does nothing but sound. They are going to bring in the best state-of-the-art stuff to take care of that problem. It's not cheap. You know that CFWC has their own sound equipment. And we bought that, and right now it's out of date, but we're going to use it. It's what we have, and we'll do the best we can with it. But it was by no means the cheapest we could buy, nor the more expensive that we could buy. It was pretty much middle of the road. I have a lot of ex-students that work, and the gentleman that put it together, this package for us from the New York store, he is the sound designer and engineer for Come From Away on Broadway. They're getting ready to open again in October. And I'd known him since he was a little boy, and I told him this is what we need, and it needs to be easy to use, easy to set up, so that somebody like, I'm going to use Yvonne as an example. Yvonne, I know, is like me. We're around just over 5 feet. It's going to be harder for us to put a speaker for our sound system in the air if that speak tower doesn't move. It doesn't, expand on its own. So when you start thinking about kind of a sound system you want to put together for your group, think about who's going to be using it, because they are as different as your microphones. And you know that we bought a couple of lavaliers. We had 2. We have one for a guest speaker. We have one for the president. We have 2 handheld. So we have one for the audience or assembly, and we have one for like the dean. That's how we were using it with Dory's administration. I would get up and I would take it, and I would take it over to the podium, so Dory didn't have to take off all of her stuff and hand it to me, because when we hire a company, they're going to bring in very minimal equipment, and that adds time to your meetings. And when you start moving microphones around, everybody go ahead and unmute themselves. Let's hear if you all know what it sounds like.
Oh yeah, lots of conversations going on. Lots of people talking.
So yeah, so when you're moving a microphone around, what is it that you usually hear? Everybody on 3. 1, 2, 3.
This is all.
No, it's all I can't wait till she's done.
Yeah, it's all people are rustling their papers. Yeah, and so go ahead and mute them again. That's what Zoom's done for us. We're able to mute you, but getting people back from that. How many times have you been in the assembly and in the audience and said, Oh, they just lost control. It's going to take them 3 minutes to get it back. And it usually does. You have to stand up there and say, everybody calm down. Let's settle down again. Everybody sit, be seated. And so I was looking at trying to work with a minimal amount of microphones that would help the leaders and the speakers in CFWC be there, because it's easy for Barbara in September for her to take that handheld and hand it to the chairman who she's calling up to speak. She can take it away from the podium. It doesn't have to be handled by anybody else. It's at her spot. She just gets up, walks over to the podium with it, and we don't hear all of that sound and things happening while it's going on. So some of the things that you can do to prepare to work with a microphone. You need to look at it. Okay, so if it is cylindrical with a little tiny round top and it's kind of hard to talk about, little boxy, it is very much a one-way mic. You have to speak down, remember, from your nose, hold it as an extension to your hand. Make sure if you're moving it towards you, and those are the kind that are usually on those wires that are attached to the podium, so that it hits you in the right position. And you may have to get a little closer to it, because where it's going to be receptive is on the top. Now, a round microphone, omnidimensional, you're going to be able to pretty much hold it wherever you want. And it's going to pick you up. So if you're going to speak, if I'm going to ask Pat Borchard to give a speech, I'm going to pick on you for a minute, Pat. So let me know if I make you uncomfortable. If I'm going to ask Pat Borchard to speak, she's going to go up to the podium and say, is this the microphone I'm using? And she's going to look at it and she's going to figure out, okay, it's omnidimensional. I don't have to worry about anything. Wherever pretty much I point it, within a certain couple of inches is going to work. If it's not omnidimensional, if it's just got that one place, the top, where she needs to speak, she's going to need to figure out, okay, is it going to have to move? Where's the height for me? And she's going to have to know that somebody may not be there to adjust it for her. So she's going to have to adjust it for herself when she first sets up to the microphone, so that she doesn't have to say, can you hear me now? Because that is not a beginning for a speaker. That's not a strong beginning. Can you hear me now? Nope. Don't do it. So thank you, Pat. Look at the type of microphone that you're using. If you have a lavalier, they will put it on you. They will test it. You may be asked to test the microphone when you come in, like you would if you were a singer or something else. Do it the way you will do it. Don't pretend to be louder than you are. At whatever volume you're going to speak at, wherever you are going to stand to speak, make sure that you are there. Just run through the alphabet. You don't need to blow into it. Never blow into a microphone. We'll tell you why. You don't need to say, can you hear me now? You can just do your ABCs. If you're going to sing, you need to sing. So we know what the high end is, because there's a board, and we have one for CFWC, where if that needle is hitting the red, we know that the audience is hearing. We need to be able to adjust the volume to fit the speaker as well at the master board area. And that's what a technician would do. But you're not going to have that if you're renting your equipment from the hotel, because they come in, they set it up, it's there for 3 days, they come in, they tear it down. So if you have problems in between, unless you have somebody who knows how to use a board correctly, and they can find the gain, or they can find the master volume to fix it when certain people are in place, then you've got some problems. And I know that I've trained Mickey Reed how to do that. I don't know if she's here today. I've trained Barbie Heine how to do that. I know how to do that. And we're going to be training more people in September. Anybody that wants to come in and learn how to use the soundboard, please come in and learn how. We need to train as many people as possible, because if you can use a remote for your cable TV, you can do sound. Remotes are more difficult. Okay. Think about city sleepers when they're talking about, recording with the VCR, which I think is one of the funniest scenes ever. It's absolutely true. How is it possible? How can you do this thing and watch something else at the same time? But we'll work on that. So you look at your microphone, okay? And you figure out where the height needs to be, what type of a microphone is. You do your microphone check. You don't start out with, can you hear me with your speech? You don't blow into the microphone. Every microphone is built with a diaphragm. It's paper thin, and it's right below where you're putting the sound into. It reverberates your sound. So if you blow in to a microphone, you're blowing hydration in from you're making it wet. You're making the microphone wet. If you hold the microphone here, you're making the microphone wet, especially the sounds like ka, pa, ta. Anything that has an explosion of your vocal breath is going to make the diaphragm wet. That's what happens when the thing goes down and everybody's like, oh, it was just working. Well, one of two things have happened. It's usually the diaphragm is wet and it takes about 10 to 15 seconds for it to dry again because it's that thin. Or the battery goes dead. That's the other thing you're not going to get from a technician is extra batteries. And how do you change the batteries? You got to be able to have a flathead screwdriver for most of these things. You open it up, you put in a new 9-volt. Works. Sometimes they're AA's, but mostly they're 9 volts. And we have that. That's what we've trained those two ladies I'd mentioned before to learn how to do. The other thing you want to do probably is make sure that at the beginning of every day, you change the batteries. You would change the batteries for every performance in theater. You don't want to take a chance that the battery's going to die. So you change the battery. You take home the others. No, they're not dead entirely, but you don't want to waste that money. It's a really easy fix. Change the batteries. That way, you know, if you're 15 minutes into a meeting with a fresh battery, it's the diaphragm that's wet and you've just got to wait a few minutes. Some people think that they can't be heard. They hold it right here. They do everything correctly, but their voice is so loud that they are still going to A, wet the diaphragm, and B, drown everybody out. Everybody's going to look like that commercial of the Bose speaker where they're in their chair like this. So as a speaker, that's the last thing you want to do is look at the audience, just like I told you in the speech. Make sure that people aren't trying to get away from you, because if they are, you know you're too loud. You can usually hear. You should hear just a little bit of a bounce in a concrete room of your sound. You should not hear it really loud. You should not hear it in a way that is uncomfortable to your ears as well. It takes some practice. So if you're thinking about getting a microphone or you want to practice, at the September board meeting, please come and practice with us. Practice setting it up. Look at our board. Look at what we do and practice with the different types of microphones. We have the handhelds and we have the body mic lavaliers. The last thing about body mics, those little ones that you pin on you or you put in your hair, you tape on you, you need to make sure that if nobody is running the board, you turn it off if you leave the room. Sonia Holtz is laughing, she gets it. Because we go places and it picks up everything. And believe me, in theater, we've heard it all. We've heard the curse words, we've heard the bathrooms, we've heard everything. So you need to make sure you know how to turn off a microphone and to turn on a microphone. And that's going to help you for the last bit is if you're adjusting the microphone in any way, removing it so that you can hold it, removing it from the holder, moving the stand up and down. You want to turn that microphone off so that people don't hear again, right? That sound that we all cringe at. It's a lot to think about, but it gets easier with every time that you do it. And I see a question. Yes, Catherine.
Hi, Madam President. I have a question. It does pertain to microphones. I noticed at a recent city council meeting, although the speakers had masks on, there were a couple speakers who went up and took their masks off to speak, and there was sharing of the mic and touching the mic and bringing it closer to their mouth. I know most of us have been vaccinated, but there are issues currently. And can you address that about how do you sanitize a microphone?
Other than changing, okay, around a microphone, you usually see a styrofoam something, right? We've all seen that. It's called a mouse. Taking the mouse off, disinfecting the mouse is the only really way to do that correctly. If it's a shared microphone, and I think you have to do that. We've seen that in the news with the speakers in Washington at the podium. I think that the best way to do it, and I don't know what the hotel has asked us to do yet as far as September is concerned. I do know we are the only group in the hotel, so we will be the only people using, well, we have our own microphones, so we are the only people using our microphones, is that we need to stay away from the microphone. You've heard that, a good 2 inches. We need to also perhaps wear our masks if we're told to, which becomes an issue of pronunciation, making sure that everyone hears what we are saying. As a speaker, you can't go so fast that everyone doesn't know what you're saying anyway, because if they won't know, they won't hear a thing. You have to over enunciate, and that's going to help in a mask, Catherine.
Yeah.
What we can do with the omnidirectional and the other microphones that I know we have for CFWC is we can make sure that we're only cleaning one all the time. We can assign our 4 microphones to people who use just those microphones for the weekend, and it's only those people. So that the microphone that Barbara Briley Beard has to be cleaned from her holding it to somebody else getting it. And that's the one we have to do. And I would say that the best way to do that is with a disinfectant wipe. Some that are a lot less wet than others. You don't want a really wet one. You want one that's a little drier, because I know like the Lysol wipes, very wet. And I think that has to do with the bottle that they're in. Everything, all the liquids soaking. But some of them that you pull out, you can just wipe off the handle, hand it to somebody. And that's an easy thing to do. The other thing you can do is use a baggie. If you have a handheld, put a baggie on the bottom. And put a baggie on the handheld before you hand it off to somebody else. Barbara knows who she's going to be. She's hearing this for the first time. She knows who she's going to be calling up to the podium. So she has baggies with her. We bring baggies. She takes her baggie off. She puts a new baggie on. She wipes it off. And she's holding the microphone by the head where she's wiped it off. And she hands it to the speaker so that they are the only people that touch that baggie. I think that that's a really smart way to do it. Because it's a great question. I wondered the same thing. You see people touching things, getting down on top of it, taking off their mask, and I'm telling you, there is liquid coming out of your mouth all the time. We know who the spitters are, but we all do it. You just don't understand that we all do it because it's not as noticeable except in a microphone setting. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Okay.
You have a question on the floor with Diane. Diane, you had a question or a comment?
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are.
San Joaquin Valley District just recently purchased a small audio system with two cordless handheld microphones. And all the things that came along with it were it's a little cover that goes over the microphone itself. And I purchased some for the district and for Wasco Women's Club, who has the similar system. And so it makes that you take a cover off every time somebody new speaks to it so that you don't get it contaminated. I got that specifically because of COVID.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we'll need to use them always, but I noticed they were all over Amazon, lots of different kinds.
I'm gonna look. That sounds great. Thank you, because that would make it much easier for us.
Yes.
To just-
You
You remove your cover, you hand a new cover to somebody else who puts it on.
Do you want
They're
me
the
to
only
bring
people
some?
that
Do
touch it.
you want me to bring some to state?
No, but if you send me the Amazon information, I love Amazon. I'll get on and I'll buy other things too, but
I'll do that. Okay, thanks.
All right, the next
That's
question
great.
comes from, oh, Linda Coons had a question. Linda, did you still have a question?
Actually, yeah, I was going to ask Pam, but with what Diane said, that sounds great. Because I was going to ask Pam if maybe up at the microphone, you know, we had the package of wipes and then you take one out and wipe the microphone before you speak. But Diane sounds a lot better than the wipes for sure. I like that suggestion.
yeah, I love that idea. I think that it's a wise idea. I'll make sure that we invest in that because that's something that we should have. You know, we want to be able to get out. There needs to be, and a lot of the executive committee has heard me saying this of late, there needs to be a first. There needs to be a first time. And I think September is going to be our first time. I'm not telling people that they have to come. There's some people that are required to be there. It's up to them to decide whether they are comfortable or not. I can't speak for you. If the hotel says it's not safe and shuts down California, again, certainly that's what we're going to do. We're not going to be there. But the best we can do now is try to go forward, be as brave as we as an individual are able to be, and do whatever we can to make everyone else feel that they are safe as well. It's one thing to be in a room where we can spread out and take our masks off to eat. It's another thing to be going up to a microphone. And until that question came, Pat, thank you for asking it. I never really thought about it. The microphone, absolutely. We need to make sure that the microphone can be safely used and utilized by a lot of people that want to touch it. And we may just hand a bunch of people baggies with their own little cover in it so that you've got that for the weekend if you stand up. Who knows how we're going to do it, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. So that's why you don't blow into a microphone, because you're just putting in hot air, which has condensation in it. And it drives me crazy when I see that happen. And, you know, can you hear me? That sound right there, that consonant sound is everything you need to make it wet. Again, the condensation. So if you hold the microphone, bottom of page 4, too close to you, you're going to hear garbled junk. If you hold the microphone too close to you, it's going to affect the diaphragm. If you turn your head and don't take the microphone with you, you're going to hear nothing. If you have a cheap microphone, you're going to hear the frequencies. Stop talking. You cannot talk over 1 Adam 12. Not going to happen. Just give up. Okay. Just step away. Take a breath of water, a nice deep breath. Take a drink of water. It'll be, you know, dispatch calls. They take up a lot of frequency, and if you're getting that, you're going to continue to get that, because after 9/11, a lot of you know that we went on to certain frequencies. We started the same numbering system because when 9/11 happened, everyone had their own code. Every state, every city, every county. And that's when it was discovered that, okay, this needs to be nationalized. So if you're getting it once, you're going to get it all the time. It's not just going to be your city. It might be the county. It might be the sheriffs. We've got the sheriffs in the adjoining city to Torrance. They are in Gardena and Lawndale. You just got to know that you're going to get it. Speakers need to over enunciate and slow down, mask or not. Remember what I said, if you're talking so fast, nobody can hear you, nobody can convict what are you saying? You need to slow down. No matter how fast you think you're going or how slow you think you're going, that is not your reality. It's usually a minute per page, unless you're a speaker like me who sees something and just starts spouting and improving. A minute a page. So if you're told to speak for 3 minutes, give us 2.5 pages worth and speak at a tempo that works for you, because you're going to time it at home and you're going to speak faster because of your nerves. Or you're going to get up and you're going to get lost and you're going to get slowed down. So if you're speaking and it's timed, make sure your print is huge, okay? Huge. And give yourself margins. You don't have to hand it in to the recording secretary that way. You can, the wonderful thing about computers is you can change the font size. So it could be 1.5 pages for the recording secretary with your signature on the bottom. But if you get up to the podium with 1.5 pages and you can't see it, because that's the other thing, you need to have the right light. And usually at the podium area, the light is not here at a 45-degree angle coming down over your head. If you're tall, the light blocks you. You can't see your paper. So make sure that you can read that paper. If you need to wear glasses, read glasses. I have new glasses. They're made especially for the computer because I was getting headaches with all the Zoom. So make sure your glasses work, or if you wear contacts, that they're going to work, because I know I did this in Sierra Coanga. I went to a convention and I showed up with the wrong speech font size. My small one got packed in my suitcase. The big one got put away for filing because I print all my speeches. And I was really straining to read that 11 font speech. And hopefully I got some of what was on my paper, but I think I mostly outlined it because I'd see a sentence and then I'd just go off. So make sure you can read your own notes. Okay. And please remember, turn the microphones off, because I cannot stress to you enough how many times, even with our new system, where the president or somebody who's wearing the lavalier turns and says, well, she fucked that up. Yeah, don't be that person. Okay, it's really hard. Mary Alexandra.
President, we have a question. Mary
Yes.
Cook has a question.
Yes, thank you, Pam. The quick question is, since you're talking about light at the podium, do you think it would be okay if we put a lamp, like a clip-on desktop lamp, battery operated, in front of the podium? Because we're finding with the hybrid Zoom that the speaker's faces are too dark at the podium. Or would that light
Absolutely.
be the speaker, I guess is my question.
Absolutely. Putting a lamp up there, putting a clock up there. I did that when I was leadership chair and had to do the leads for 3 days in a row. I had a clock at the podium, so the speakers knew when their 10 minutes were up. And if they weren't, I'd have to tell them. So yes, put a lamp up there. Little lamps work. The other thing that I usually have, and a lot of you don't see it, is I have a pen with a light on it. And if it's real dark, I will bring my pen, turn the light on, and just hold it at the podium, or shine it on my paper from above or the side, depending on where I see the fewer shadows. and see that, but it looks like a normal pen and it has a flashlight on the end. So yes, it would help a lot if you did that, because you have to make it as easy as possible. Otherwise, people aren't going to want to do it again. Public speaking is a huge fear. It's a huge fear. You have to ease into it. Some of us were born with sentences in our mouths. I understand my first one was, I do my shelf. I have no problem with public speaking. Am I nervous? Absolutely. Everybody should be nervous. Otherwise, you've got a few ego problems going on. But not everybody wants to be a public speaker. So you have to make them feel as easy as possible. Are there any other questions about microphones, public speaking?
Yes, Linda Kuntz has a question. Linda?
Thank you. Yes, Pam, one thing that I just wanted to mention, and I know that I always do it myself if I'm speaking to an audience, is to go ahead and ask if everybody would please mute their cell phone or put it on vibrate. It never fails that if you're up there speaking, somebody's phone goes off. And I really think this should just be just automatic, when you say hello to everybody, that you remind everybody to do that, because there's a lot of people that wouldn't even think about that.
I think that it falls upon incumbent of the presiding officer to announce it, the amenities person to watch for it. The aide can help with that. It's very important because we all know what happens. I mean, we've all heard what happened with De Niro in a live performance where somebody's phone went off. He got off the stage and he walked right down to the person who was trying to turn it off. And he stopped the entire show while he told the man to take the call.
Mm-hmm.
There are other things that you can ask than that, Linda. In theater, we always told people, open your candy and stuff now after intermission. We don't want to hear the rappers. Okay? Especially when you're getting back into something like Man of La Mancha, where the first scene after intermission is a rape. We've all seen, and it's done in dance form. It could look very lovely, but it's a very intense scene. And the authors put it there on purpose so that you could tell an audience, Act 2 begins with a whatever you want to put in the lobby. I used to put up a sign that's just saying what it was, because children aren't coming to see Man of La Mancha. They aren't going to get it. So it starts with a rape. The ushers will let you in afterwards, but you tell people, open your candy and wrappers now. But I've seen it in meetings too, where somebody is sitting at a table behind you or with you, and they're opening those big licorice boxes, and all you hear is crinkle, crinkle, crinkle. And then once the shushes start, Valerie's laughing, once the shushes start, everyone's shushing and you've lost control. So there's other things you can do too to do that. And I think even further, and you've heard me say this before about the presidents, when I talked about presiding officers and presidents, I don't allow for them to clean up the dishes while someone's speaking. Because all you hear is clink, 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 clink. So there's a lot of little things that you can do as a presiding officer to say, please remember, turn this off, don't do this, put it on vibrate. A lot of us have to, you've seen me get up from the head table. I have to keep my phone on vibrate. For the health reasons of my family, I have to be available. So, but you don't hear the phone ringing. So yeah. Kathy.
I was just thinking maybe to bring some of those gloves, not necessarily latex, if we're going to speak. That way you don't, if in case the baggie falls off, you have your gloves.
That's
and
a better idea.
Bring a set of, or several sets of those gloves.
Yeah, that's a better idea, because that's going to fit the person better. Yeah, they can just walk away with their glove.
Okay, our
Debbie.
next question is Debbie.
I just want to tag on to what Linda Coons had said. My club used to remind people to turn their phones off, and they would still get phone calls during the meeting. So now, as part of the president's opening welcome, she reminds everybody to mute their phones or put them on vibrate, because if we hear a phone ring during the meeting, it's $1. We charge them $1. If they vibrate, if they have to take a call, fine, leave the room, but we do not want to hear that phone ring. And you know what? Oh, and we also say, and if we have any guests in the room, guest speakers visiting from anybody who hears a phone ring, it's going to charge. Probably the only people we wouldn't charge would be a fireman or a policeman, but anybody else, we charge them $1, and we do. We don't have to do it very often, but you know what? It did stop the ringing of the phone calls. So get your boards to agree to that.
And some people don't know how to turn off their phones. And I can remember when I was a district president, cell phones were just coming into being. Everybody all of a sudden had them. And I would sit down at the table and people would say, oh, good, maybe you can show me how to do this. So ask people at your table, do you know how to turn your phone off? Do you know how to make it vibrate? Because a lot of people don't know still. They just leave it on all the time. Those of you that know me know I hate the phone. I've always hated the phone. My poor stepmother hears me from me like once every 2 months because I'll send an email, but I just do not like the phone. I've never liked the phone. Gave my sister all of my minutes when I was growing up. And it's impersonal. It can be an attack. It goes back to the speaking and listening things. You don't know what people are saying. You don't understand. It's the only thing worse are emails. You don't understand what people are trying to convey. So yeah, help each other with the phones because they become part of our society. It just is what it is. I use mine more for a camera than anything else. Last picture I took, I made a pie on Sunday. So yeah, I got a nice picture of my pie in my phone, and that's it. So, okay. So we're going to get into some of the protocol issues with speaking and listening. And Priscilla wrote this, and I think it's really important to include in speaking and listening techniques only out of politeness. Protocol is about being polite. We need to be polite. And when we listen, we have to really actively listen. If I were to have a conversation with Kelly Davis, who just showed up on my screen. So Kelly, is it okay that I use you for a minute? So if I were to have a conversation with Kelly Davis and she's telling me all about her family and I'm going, am I listening? Not on your life. But if I answer her with, wow, and then what did happened after that? Oh, you moved. Do you like your new house? Or what? And she hasn't moved. I'm not telling you she's moved. I'm just saying that I am actively listening to what she is saying. You need to be engaged as a member, as a protocol to all the other members to actively engage with other people. We do not stand alone. We can't stand alone. Together, we are very powerful. We need to be together, and nobody's going to want somebody to help them if they're getting like Kelly got, And then when she takes a breath, I go, oh, did I tell you? And I change the whole thing about something else. That's a disservice to Kelly. She's going to maybe feel insulted by me. And that's her right, because I was insulting. So I think it's very important that we remember protocol and listen to everybody. We don't have to agree. We don't have to like what's being said. But when we listen, we are better at debate. We are better at speaking, because we can turn around and say, as you just heard from Valerie Barnes, this. Valerie's vindicated and happy that at least one person heard her. And that they are repeating what she said because she thought it was important enough to say once. As opposed to saying, Yeah, nobody's going to take you seriously. So be an active listener. Don't be a captive listener. Because we have to sit there many times, we have to listen, but we also have to hear what's being told to us. We aren't being told a bunch of stuff for nothing. So we need to make sure that we remember that protocol. I think it's also important as club women, not just officers, which is what it talks about in this little bit that Priscilla wrote. You need to remain impersonal, non-judgmental. You can't have an attitude, right? So that if Allison Eccleston, Allison, is it okay that I use you now? If Allison Eccleston says something to me and I go, well, that's not going to work. As the president of the state, how does that make her feel? It hurts right there. I'm putting a thumb on it. So I have to listen to what she says and not give my personal opinion, no matter what I feel. That's not my job. My job as the listener is to hear what she's saying and support the hearing of what she's saying. Doesn't mean I support what she's doing, but it means that I am open to listening to her ideas. So please remember that it's very important that we do that, because it's really hard on people, to share, and especially if you're in a position of a past district president, a club president. A lot of people don't want to share because they think that they are not worthy of sharing. We need to encourage them to share. It's with many ideas that we get the answers. So listen without judgment, listen without attitude. You also need to, as an officer and a member, listen to what's said and take it and not go fishing for another answer. I think I don't have any children, but I worked with a lot of stage parents. If they didn't like my answer, they went to the choreographer, or they went to the producer, or they went somewhere else. You know, why is my daughter not playing Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz? She can sing. Well, my answer was usually, no, she did not sing well enough. I never said no, she couldn't sing, because I always tried to make it as easy as possible. I think that perhaps she needs to take some more classes. One time I had to tell the woman she's just too young, but they don't like the answer, so they go somewhere else. I got to tell you, that happens to Barbara Briley Beard and I all the time. I'm mom, she's dad. Or if you go to her first, she's mom, I'm dad. You don't like the answer you got from one, so you go to the other and you try and pit us against one another. Well, I got to tell you, we talk to each other almost every other day. We know your questions. We know what you're asking. So when we say it the first time, please listen, please hear what we're saying. It's important that you hear the correct thing. And I cannot stress enough about hearing and your interpretation. It's kind of like the bylaws. Everyone's going to interpret the bylaws differently. But a no is a no. A yes is a yes. And if you have a problem with 2/3 of the clubs in California, you have to interpret that exactly as written. 2/3 of the clubs in California. We've just recently had this going on, so that's why I'm using that as an example. Really think about interpretation. Now, some people, it doesn't matter what you tell them. You could tell them it's raining, and it is, and they'll go, oh, no, it's not. It's just misting. Or you can tell them, this is what she said, and they would be very accurate, and they would say, nope, that's not what she said. It doesn't matter what you tell them, because they only hear and believe what they want to believe. You cannot control that. Don't try, you'll go insane. It just is what it is. And you can never control that type of thinking. You will go insane because you will lose sleep over it. Just is what it is. You have to just say, and that's not what I said. And if they interpret it as something different, that's on them, not on me. And if they take everybody in their club with it, that's on them, not on you. So really be careful about what you hear and what you repeat as written word, or in the case of like, let's take report writing, policy. Drives me crazy when I hear, and this happened to me when I was dean, and 2 districts did report writing workshops before I did a report writing workshop. Then they couldn't understand why everything was not accurate. One of those districts rewrote the entire form. And then we got to the September board meeting and the area meetings, and I said, no old forms allowed. And then they panicked. You've got to wait until you get all of the information. And so that's just my big thing to say as far as listening and following what has actually been said. So not picking on anybody, it happens. We've all seen it happen in each of our clubs. This is what's going to be. This is what's going to happen. And it's like, but that's not really the way it's supposed to happen. We're going to vote on our members. No, you're not, because that's against the law. Well, in this case, Pam's wrong. It's not against the law. Yes, it is. Well, every member doesn't get a vote. Well, yes, they do. It's called members' rights. And in GFWC, if you pay dues, you automatically get a vote. It doesn't matter what you paid. If you paid your dues, you have a vote. So you can't, there's some things you just can't change, but it always amazes me that people interpret those things very differently. And you can't control it. I think I've made my point, right? It'll just make you nuts because I use you, and not personally, I don't say your names as an example, but I use the whole situation as an example. So members have some things they have to do to help you be a better speaker and them a better listener. They need to be on time to your meetings. That includes Zoom. How many of you have been at a meeting, show of hands, where somebody comes in late and says, can somebody please catch me up? Okay, so you need to know that if you ever watch the series Dexter, I am the Deborah Morgan of CFWC. I was in the Air Force. I have quite the sailor talk. And I don't use it out loud to any of you, but my husband hears it. And I will get off and say, and oh, it's like, if you come in late, that's your choice. There are many reasons why people come late. I've come late to things. Maybe I had to take care of something. Maybe, I told Sonia Holtz today, I don't know if I can be at the thing on Saturday. I have a dog agility class that's from 10 to 11, and so I'll come in late. But you don't ask to be caught up, right? The other thing you don't do for the members, because it's boring, is you don't explain every time what a fund is for. Maybe you have it written on a piece of paper, but you don't say, the scholarship fund, we're collecting money to give things to the Redondo Beach girls at the high school. And we do this every year, and it's just our way of doing it. And we're going to give away X amount of money and blah, 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 blah. Every single month. One president did that. It drives the members crazy. If somebody asks, ask your table mates, ask the person after the meeting, but don't just keep repeating. If as a member you're asked to speak, you need to go to the microphone. You can't stand up in the back of the room and say, can everybody hear me? Because only the people in a certain periphery are going to be able to hear you. Go to the microphone. Drives me nuts when you hear the loud, audible no from the corner or from the podium. It's me. I'll be the first person to yell out no. We can't hear you. And I'm speaking for the rest of the group, because if you have something to say, it's important. We want to hear it. So make sure that they get up and walk. And if you have a group of people that cannot necessarily walk to the podium, make sure you have someone, it's called a page, with the microphone in the audience to walk up to them and hand them the handheld so they can get their ideas heard. It is so important we hear from anybody who wants to speak. So important, but we want to hear. We want to hear what they have to say. You don't walk between the head table and the audience. Part of that is protocol. You certainly don't walk between the head table and the audience in this fashion. Bent over at the waist so that nobody can see you. Well, we see you. We see your gazica, which is Yugoslavian for you know what. It just looks bad. Don't do it. Remember we talked about upstaging? Everyone's watching you. Nobody's watching the speaker, and nobody's hearing what they have to say, because everyone's watching somebody walk in front or bend over, worse, and walk in front. So I know it's a simple matter of protocol, but it just really lends itself to today's topic, speaking and listening, because there are things, upstaging, that's a huge theater term, but there are things that you cannot avoid that will upstage everything that's going on. If somebody's talking at the table, upstaging while the speaker, if your phone goes off, upstaged by a phone device, somebody walking in front of you, upstaged. If you are short and all we see is this and above from the podium, and there's no way you can get taller because there's nothing you can stand on, you are upstaged by a piece of furniture. Really watch the upstaging, because every time an upstaging incident happens, people aren't listening. And so work on that. Practice self-respect, so important. Don't talk when other people are talking. It's really important to be respectful of people. Listen, as we talked about, treat other people's ideas with consideration. I think it's really good. I think a good example of that today was Kat brought up something I never even thought of. Thank goodness she did, and thank you very much. And then Diane told me about something that they took on with San Joaquin Valley to help with that disinfecting. It's so important we hear what other people have to say. I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. We don't know what the grand plan is. We have to take ideas from other people and be very accepting of that. Be mindful of your words and be mindful of your eyes. It's really easy on Zoom to watch the reactions of people. You don't necessarily get to do that in person because you're in a big group, and I've told you to focus not on people, but in other areas of the room. But if you're standing up there and let's see, oh, BJ's here. So I'm going to use BJ. BJ, may I use you for a moment? And I'm going to use BJ. I'm going to change my view so I can see her in gallery view. And I say, there she is. She's waving at me. Great. You look really good in flowers. What are my eyes and my voice telling her? That she doesn't. But if I tell her, you look great in flowers, you look good in patterns, you'll never see me in a lot of patterns, but you look wonderful in patterns. That's different. So be very mindful of your words, your inflection, and your eyes. Because when you start rolling your eyes in the back of your head, people know it. It's a telltale sign of what is actually going on. Okay. Cultivate good manners. I was raised by my grandmother. I was spanked, I was slapped, and I turned out just fine. I was sent to my room without food. We did not watch television. We watched one show a week. That was it. We were allowed to watch The Wonderful World of Disney. And up until I left when I was 18, that was still the rule. You did not go out on Sunday night. You were home for The Wonderful World of Disney. I had a bedtime. You just have to really be mindful of what you're doing to other people, how you're making other people feel. If you see that people are moving around in their chair, they're a little uncomfortable, or if you have somebody you look at, I miss Paulette Meadows so much. Paulette Meadows was always the person I looked at, and she's passed away, of course, when I would speak. I would look at my focuses, but if I felt I was not quite hitting the mark, I would look to where Paulette was, and she was always somewhere in the front. And she always gave me a signal. She'd give me a little hands up, or she'd be laughing, or she'd do this. She'd go, which meant that my ponytail was moving too much, because when my hair was longer, I always wore it in a ponytail. And it was so much fun because she was my barometer for the audience. And now I need to find a new barometer, and I'll find it, September, somebody, but you need to watch people and find out, what is going on, because sometimes, you'll look at people and you'll just be out there and you'll see the people at the tables talking amongst one another, and one will do this. And maybe they're talking about you, but I guarantee you're going to think they're talking about you. So be very mindful of those actions. Email. Last thing I'm going to hit before we take some questions, because I know it's been a long workshop. Email is very difficult. Reply all is your worst enemy. Email is not your friend. Be very mindful of the emails that you send. You need to read them a couple of times before you send them. And even then, you might get the wrong word or the spelling incorrect. But especially if you're taking an action with someone or towards someone, you need to really read that email, sit on it for about 24 hours, ask someone else what they think, because email is not your friend. Email is forever. It's forever. I have emails that go back forever. I keep all emails. I keep them in storage. A lot of it is because I like to go back and say, oh, we talked about this on this date, but some of it is because I'm covering my own ass. No offense. But we all have those emails too. So please be very careful about emails. And when you reply all, everyone becomes part of the conversation. I come from a government background, worked in the government, worked for a municipality. In this state, we follow the Brown Act. Email is unacceptable. Constitutes speaking out of meeting. Robert's Rules does not cover that. And perhaps someday it will. But you are going to have people not listening and not speaking to you who are going to try to conduct business around you via email. Be ready for it. Know how to put a stop to it. Maybe you'll have a standing rule. That would be a good place for it. That is in your clubs. You can ask Valerie, I'm putting her on the spot, about how you want to write it, because we don't have such a thing in the California bylaws, but we're pretty strong people when we get to the bottom of the pyramid, which is what I am. I'm at the very bottom, club's top member, top of the flow chart. Then the club officers, then the club presidents, then the districts, then the district officers, then the district presidents. then the state officers and the state president, I am on the bottom of your pyramid. Everything rolls down on me. I have strong shoulders. I'm holding you all. And I love that ability that I have to do. But so when we get there, we're pretty strong about saying unacceptable. I had 4-year-olds that knew the word unacceptable. And it's okay to tell people you can't have a meeting in the bathroom. You can't have a meeting in the parking lot. You can't have a meeting on email, because that's what happens sometimes. And you have to use your speech to be able to let them know, not just that it's unacceptable, but why. You have to follow it up with a why. I think that when people ask questions about, well, why can't we do this? And you just say, we can't. That's not an acceptable answer. We have to be able to tell them, well, the standing rule, here it is in our booklet, says that we need to conduct the business this way. And so if you're going to see those little things in email and everything else, you need to just be able to send an email out and say, this is wrong. If you would like this to be added to the agenda, please go through the proper channels as according to the bylaws or according to what we do. And we will be happy to talk about it at the next meeting. But this tactic, it is only hurting us. And you notice I said us, not you, us. We have to stick together. We've got 9,000 members, according to Jill right now. We are 14-point-something% of GFWC's membership. We are a very large, vocal, capable group, and we are capable of so much more than using our speaking and listening skills as weapons, which is a whole other speech, which some of you have heard me talk about, weaponized gab. For 20 minutes, I talked about it at one of the CFWC workshops. Don't weaponize your speaking and listening skills to hurt others. It's for the best. I mean, we're all here to help one another. My gosh, it's exciting. And I'm so excited to be here and just to be talking about some of these things. So it's whole body stuff, things you can do to really help with your speaking and listening skills. So let's open it up. Sonia, people can read whatever they want with all the other pages I sent.
Our first question comes from Kathy. Kathy, you have a question?
I have a couple. First of all, you mentioned Priscilla, who wrote protocol. What was her last name?
Priscilla Bolander.
Okay, okay.
She's now the convention chair. She is the most recent parliamentarian for the state. She is so well-rounded and knows so much about federation. She's a great source. And for those of you that went to the amenities workshop, she actually did the trifold.
Oh, okay.
So Priscilla Bolander.
I just couldn't think of her last name. And the other thing is on page 5 of your handout, it said body language is part of speaking and listening. Remember to practice the following tips. You hit on eye contact, but I somehow missed, what were the other points?
Well, I didn't really, I didn't write them down. Eye contact, I think that if you're squirming or if you're looking at the floor, if for instance, Linda's up here, I'm going to use Linda if that's okay for a minute, Linda Kuntz. If I'm looking at the floor going, yeah, okay, Linda, you're next. What is Linda going to think when she launches into her thing? So we have to make sure that our whole body is open. In acting, they'll tell you if you stand like this, you're closed off. If you cross your legs, you're closed off. If you stand at the podium and you lean in, you're a little more receptive. It looks like you're waiting for this to be heard. You have to really think about body language. I think one of the best ways to look at body language is watch the news. I know, as painful as it sounds. Watch the news, watch all the channels. They're all different. They're very interesting. Some people are very bombastic. Some people are very attacking. Some people just kind of sit back and they let it go. Some people are on their computers which I find very interesting. I don't understand why they're on their computer while they are doing the newscast. It's like, shouldn't you have a monitor or something, or some kind of person who's holding up cue cards? Really look at the body language of people, because I think it really speaks a lot. And some people consider jewelry part of body language. I'm not going to consider that, because I never downplay my jewelry for my role at the podium, because they'll tell you, don't wear a bracelet that makes noises, don't wear necklaces that hit, don't wear like a squash blossom. Okay, nobody's going to tell me not to wear my squash blossoms. But some people will tell you that jewelry is part of body language, because it takes away from what you're doing and attracts a different type of look.
Our next person that has a question or a comment is Linda. Linda, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Sonia. Yes, Pam. A question is, when you're on the subject of emails, and what do you suggest? I mean, I've just tried everything. I know that we all have lives outside of Federation. I understand that. When you send an email or you send a text message, I always tell people that give me at least maybe 3 days. To me, that's reasonable. Okay. If they can't reply, I also say, which I know that CF has said, Barbara has said it, say, got it. But when you have somebody, and it's very important, the communication between, especially if you're talking about district officers, what do you do? I mean, yes, the last thing is pick up the telephone, and ask, because if an email bounces back to you, obviously you have the wrong email address.
Right.
But it's extremely frustrating, because I pride myself on getting back as soon as I can if somebody's sending me an email or a text message. I mean, and that's just one of my big pet peeves. I just feel like I'm totally ignored. And
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else has that problem, but communication is so very important.
It's hard, Linda. And I think that what you said about pet peeves is so important. It's one of your pet peeves. I think having your own goal of 3 days is great. I try and keep it, yes, between 48 and 72 hours to get back to somebody. It doesn't always happen, because not everything requires an answer.
Right.
And I get a lot of emails now, and a lot more than I used to get. But it's hard. You can lead that horse to water, but you can't make them drink. It's your pet peeve. And I get it, because I have the same pet peeve. It's like, did they understand? Did they get the project? Did they not do anything? And it's very frustrating. I think that the best way to tackle it is, how many of you read my Quick Bite Monday, which was yesterday, right? It's yesterday, Monday. The days just kind of go. When I talked about these nominating committees, I think it's really important that you know the skills as a nominating committee of the people you are contacting. Now, Marina District does things completely different. They have a straw poll. They ask for people to put down on a ballot who they want to run for office. And then those people, if they meet the criteria as according to the bylaws, are contacted. What the bylaws say and what, like Linda's saying, they don't get back to you, two completely different things. But if you're the president, you need to get back to people, and you need to send a got it or something else. You need to communicate. You need to not just be able to speak with people vocally, but speak with them via email. So it's important that we know that you can't control them, that yes, it's going to make you nuts, have some peanuts instead and take your mind off of it. Watch something on television and not think about it, because it'll just keep you up at night. But also know that when it comes time to nominate and vote for people in an election for a role, that you are nominating and electing people that have the skills that you need. And if communication is one of those skills, then you've got to be voting based upon communication. Any others? Fabulous. So Sonia, tell us about the communication boot camp on Saturday.
All right, let's go over that. Fantastic. Okay, so I want you to know that we heard what you guys were asking for. And we met on Monday and went over exactly what we're going to be teaching you. And this is what we're going to be doing on Saturday morning. The most asked questions about Facebook is, how do I represent our club before and after an event? So I'll be covering that for you. The next one is, how do I create a memorial PowerPoint or an awards PowerPoint that really does our club proud? And Debbie will be covering that. How do I brand my club or get involved with the media so that we can get our information out to the community more? Lou Arredondo is going to be covering that. What is GFWC asking us to do in our communications? Dory Kelsey is going to be covering that. How do I build a website that everyone wants to be part of? Linda Queen and Ellen Coates are covering that. So as you can tell, there are going to be a lot of really great dig in communication hours on Saturday. We know it's going to be a long day. We know that it's not for everyone because it's going to be a little bit more technical than an average everyday workshop. That's all good with us. You can pick the one you want to come to. You can pick the one that you want to be part of. You can send your entire communications team to us and we will walk through with them. Did I mention the Dropbox? Maybe I didn't mention the Dropbox. So we all know that Dropbox is going to be part of the new year. We've been using it as a team up here at State for some time and it's working extremely successfully and we are so happy to have this tool. So we will also be covering we will be sitting in and discovering how you as a member or a district dean will be using Dropbox this year. And we'll be taking all of that mystery and fear out of that with how to do that. And you'll be jumping in with us. You'll be asked to join in. You'll be asked to step in and help us do something. Let's say for the Facebook, you'll get on with me and you'll write a Facebook post and then we'll all work together to make it better. So it's kind of a day of really digging in. So if technology is not your thing, then this is not your workshop. But if you have always wanted to know how to make your comm team better, my team is totally here for you. Okay, did I answer all your questions? Does anyone have any questions about Saturday? Yeah, thumbs up, we're good. You're all ready to come in and help us make our comm team better, right? Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Pam.
See, thank you. I was trying to unmute myself, so obviously I still have some issues. And it's hard, you know, we're all learning. Barbara Briley Beard has a couple of back to basics workshops coming up. Barbara, you want to announce those about the deans and the chairs?
Yes, thank you very much, Pam. We have two. One is on Friday, August the 6th. It's going to be the roles of the club and the district dean. All the district deans will be receiving emails from me later today regarding that. They're all going to be taking a part if they're going to be attending. And then next week on Wednesday, August the 11th, these are both 10 to 12 workshops, is going to be the chairman. And so all of the chairmen will be receiving emails from me tomorrow in regards to the part they will be playing. And I look forward to it. And I hope that our district deans and our chairmen are going to look forward to it too. So please come if you can.
Yay, excellent.
And thank you for being here today, all of you.
Yes,
I think we all
thank
learned
you.
a lot from President Pam today. Thank you.
Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon. It's been fun. I'm enjoying the summertime series and I hope you are too. It's nice to see so many people. And I cannot wait to see more of you in the upcoming months and as we go forward into whatever will be. So I don't know about you, but I'm out of the pupa stage and ready to emerge with my wings. Have a wonderful day and we'll see you soon. Bye.